Yeah. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And we'll move on without further ado. Apologies for absence and substitutions. I know we've got a couple of apologies for lateness. Councillor Lawrence and Councillor Sam Smith are apologising for being late. And did you want to talk about that?
Yep, thanks, Chair. So we have apologies from Councillor Hemingway and Councillor Murray.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to item 2 to approve the correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of November. Has anybody got any comments or questions or, comments? No? Everybody happy? We've got somebody to propose them. Michael Boyle. Second. Martin Smith. There we go. Okay, number 3, any declaration of interests tonight about anything we might be talking about? No? Okay, so we're going to move on to the programme of portfolio holder attendance. We've got Councillor Jenny Hollingsworth with us tonight to talk about her portfolio or answer any questions we may have. So I think we'd just like to start with, if you could just talk to us a little bit about any of the main issues in your area and your economic development and things. Yes, please do. Yes, please do.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for asking me tonight. As you know, it's a fairly broad portfolio, so you'll have to forgive me if I skip between economic development and planning and housing delivery a bit. My brain works that way, so you'll have to forgive me. You will know from the latest reports that we have under-delivered on houses, but you will also know that we are very reliant on developers to bring forward those houses. We do expect that delivery will catch up in the next quarter, and there are deliveries taking place on Teal Close, Lendrum Court in Burton Joyce, Chase Farm, Mapley Plains, Park Road, Vale Road, and work has started on Linden Grove, just off Burton Road, which will deliver 120 homes. You'll also know that Rolleston Drive, work is starting on that. That will deliver 131 affordable and shared ownership houses. They will all be constructed by modern methods of construction, which means that they will go up very quickly. They will be, I'm trying to think of the word, not prefabricated, no, I'm thinking the energy efficient, that was the word I wanted, energy efficient. So it's nice that, as you know, that piece of land has been derelict for many, many years. So we're very, very pleased that it's coming forward through Jigsaw Homes. I think 45 of those will be shared ownership. The rest will be for social rent, and they will be delivered over the next 18 months or so. Majority coming forward hopefully this year. In terms of affordable homes, you will see from the report that none were delivered in this quarter. However, through a range of developments, we do expect that that will catch up again in the next financial year. We do have a housing delivery plan, so that officers work very closely with developers to look at any blocks in delivery, any viability issues, any transport issues that might need to be sorted out, so that they could bring those sites forward. We do have many sites with outline planning permission, and unfortunately they haven't come forward yet. But as I say, we're very, very reliant on developers to bring those sites forward. We also have an annual update on the SHLA. I'm sure you're all familiar with that, which is the Strategic Housing Land availability assessment. That puts out a call for other sites that developers might want to bring forward or owners of sites might want to bring forward for consideration. It also gives the officers a chance to have a look again and revisit sites which have been in the plan but haven't yet come forward for development. We have, at the moment, a 6.23 housing land supply. As you know, we need at least 5 years, so we are in a good position at the moment. Work is going on to bring forward the Nottinghamshire Strategic Plan, which will be an update of the core aligned strategy, which, if you remember, was adopted in 2014. Just having a look, see if there's anything I can give you on that. The City Council will be bringing forward a capacity paper. Site selection work is ongoing, and that uses a consistent approach right across the Nottinghamshire housing market. It's something that developers particularly want to see, that we are consistent across the boroughs. Otherwise, they're trying to work with lots of different policy documents. And the Greenbelt assessment has been complete. You will know that the government is asking that 25% of build is for first homes, and I see you've been commissioned to prepare a brief on that to take that work forward. Is there anything else on housing there? Michael?
Forgive me, Chair, I wasn't using the equipment provided, and perhaps I should have been. But just a quick question on sort of housing, and just to also place. Oh, I'm using the microphone in order to assist with that, but maybe, yeah, okay. I want to place on record, first of all, the really good work that's being done in this borough for bringing existing homes that have been empty for some time back into use, and there's been quite a bit of that, and I've get the report sometime, and that's really good. On my main question, though, on the housing bit, is that we seem to be reliant on other people that we don't necessarily control particularly, whether it be Jigsaw, whether it be developers, whether it be other actors within the space, which makes our life, as a housing is part of what we do, and has also traditionally been seen as part of what we do. So how do you see that working really going forward, and how much more influence can we bear on the situation, given there is housing need and there is homelessness, and also sort of providing these things obviously helps with economic regeneration as well, and it all sort of fits together. I just wondered how you see that going forward, because otherwise we can report what other people are doing, but if they don't do what we think they ought to be doing, nothing much will happen.
It's a very personal question, Michael, and it is extremely difficult. We are very reliant, as you say, on developers, house builders, and social housing providers to bring forward projects. Clearly, it's dependent on the vagaries of the housing market, whether houses are selling in a particular area or not. Depends on, we've got a cost of living crisis. If mortgages are going to be expensive, are people going to get a mortgage? Will they be able to get a mortgage? It's so interdependent on other things. Obviously, officers work very closely with developers. We have a developer forum 4 times a year, so that developers can bring forward issues to us where they think we can help in smoothing the way, and clearly we'll do that. We can point developers to funding streams if there are particular issues of viability that they can't actually overcome. It's very difficult. We do everything we can. We are dependent on volume house builders as well. If you remember, I think 2008, the economic crash put a lot of the small and medium developers out of business. The government is extremely keen that a lot of these sites are partially developed by small and medium-sized providers, but they just aren't. There aren't that many of them at the moment. We are dependent on the large sites and the volume providers. It's a question that I wish I could answer, but we just continue to work to do everything we can to enable developers to bring their sites forward. There are a lot of sites, unfortunately, that have had planning permissions for many years. Topwig Hay was actually identified in the 2005 local plan, completely out of our hands whether that got developed or not, because it belonged to Nottinghamshire County Council. Despite us having a design brief for the site, only 34 houses were delivered. Fortunately now, that site will be coming forward, and I think it's going to be a new village. And some of the employment land will come forward as well. So things are happening. We do expect to see an increase in provision over the next 1 to 2 years. And we'll continue to work with developers to do everything we can. You are right about the link with economic regeneration, because, but also with our training. We have local labour agreements with developers. Now, the bigger house builders often have their own training facilities, and they can do it quite well. The smaller ones find it a bit more difficult. So we're actually revisiting that policy at the moment to see if we can actually do it in a better way and a more efficient way and get more people through those schemes than we have in the past. COVID actually put a stop to an awful lot of on-site training and work experience, because they just couldn't be on site. So, but yeah, it's a good question, but not one that's easily answered. We're not alone. Other boroughs have the same sort of issues.
Okay. Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. It's really along the same lines, because not only are sites not developed, because we've got a requirement that work should start within 3 years, they're often started and then not further developed, and that is a real disadvantage to the community. I point to Dark Lane in Calverton. It's certainly been started, and there is some work going on there, but the fact of the matter is a very well-used footpath has now been blocked off to the public for getting on for 2 years, and there's not a single house appeared there yet. There's roads going in, but you know, this is a genuine disadvantage, and I wonder whether the borough could actually think about, if we can say work must start within 3 years, surely we should be able to say, and the first 20 houses will be up within 6 years. You know, the fact of the matter is, we have a housing development in Calverton, which got initial planning permission in 1975, and they are just finishing some of the houses. Now that is a concern. You know, and the people, I mean, I must admit the estate is really rather nice. But the point is, the people around those last few houses have had lorries and bricks and mess, and you know, for a very long time. And some developers have got a track record of this, and I'm pointing to the Langridge in Calverton, and they're known for the fact that they don't build out. What they do is they build off plan. So people come along and say, yes, I'll buy that house, and they say, okay, we'll build it then. And that is their business plan, and it's whether this borough council are in a position to say, no, we don't accept that building plan, that business plan. And I might add that I was at a public meeting when the land at the top of Main Street in Calverton was was made developmentable land. In other words, it was given over to building. And that land is owned by Langridge. And at the time, we actually pointed out how abysmal their record was for completion. And the chap who was representing Langridge said, oh, well, that won't be the case in this case because we'll be subbing it out. In other words, we're going to sell it on for somebody else to build. I haven't heard that they've done that. I do know not a stone has been turned on that patch. And I don't think what they said they were going to do is actually going to happen. You know, they're running circles around the borough. And really, at some point, that has got to be addressed because from the point of view of the community, we may not want the houses. Okay? And that is the view still of the majority of the people in Calverton. But if we're going to have them, we prefer the Persimmon way of doing it, where they come in, they put their roads in, they get on with it, and within a couple of 3 years, you've got your 200 houses or whatever it is, and they've gone. We don't want a builder to be just endlessly going on. And there must be some way of the borough turning around and saying, actually, no, we don't think you're a fit developer for our borough, go somewhere else.
There's a lot in that, and I will try and answer. I don't want to identify particular developers. It is national guidance that planning permissions last for 3 years. Unless there has been material changes to that particular site, they tend to get automatically renewed, unless there has been an issue which makes the site unsuitable or less suitable. That is national policy, we cannot control that. I know there have been approaches to government to actually have a look at how that works. There was talk about reducing it to 2 years possibly, before, you know, so it can be looked at again, that they've got to complete in 2 years, but that is still the same. Quite frankly, I share your frustration because the reality is if they dig a trench and put some footings in, it's deemed to have started. So the 3 year has gone as well, so you never get a chance to revisit. And that's the reality, Councillor Hope. And there is nothing as a borough we can do about that. In terms of, you said people didn't want the houses, they didn't want the houses then, they don't want it now. All the land that was identified and accepted unanimously by this council in 2018, the principle of development is established. So that land is identified for being developed. That will not change. People will get the chance to comment on a planning application when a detailed planning application comes to this council. We cannot do a lot about people who don't develop the sites. As I said previously, we work with developers to have a look why they're not being developed and how we can assist in bringing those sites forward. But at the end of the day, we're in the hands of the developer. Have I missed anything out of that?
That's okay. Councillor Martin Smith.
Well, just two things, Mike. First of all, if it's a public footpath that's been closed, what? Fine, okay, that's dealt with then. Yeah, as long as it's been reopened, that's fine. We've talked a lot in the last few minutes about large-scale developments, Let's not forget that there are lots of small developments going on. I'm chairing Ravenshead Parish Council Planning Committee this evening. We've got a proposal in front of us to look at a plot that's putting up 11 properties. Yes, they're all 4-bedroomed. We've had a lot of those in Ravenshead, but for every person that moves into a 4-bedroom, they probably come from a 3-bedroom. People who move into 3-bedroom may well have come from a 2-bedroom, and the people who move from those could be first-time buyers. So, the chain is necessary. Yes, we do need houses for first-time buyers and those on low income, but the pricier properties do benefit the housing chain.
I agree. The smaller sites are incredibly valuable, as are all the windfalls that come forward, and they are built into the housing delivery figures that we assess for the year. Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely invaluable.
Did you have another question, Mike?
Yeah, it's a different issue. Honestly, I don't want to hog it. I'll tell you, it's been a concern of mine for a long time now. I know that we're behind on the housing target. I understand that. But I note that we have built 69 homes this quarter. Well, it was up to December, wasn't it? And again, I noticed that none of those 69, not one, is affordable. And it seems to me that we accept the tagging on of affordable housing. You know, you'll get a site built up, you'll get the houses sold to the people who can buy them, and then at the very end, we might, if we're lucky, get some affordable housing. But often, they then prove that, you know, those last 20 homes are not viable, and they pay some money, and that's another shed load of affordable housing that doesn't happen. Again, you know, I ask the question, yeah, is there not some way that we could condition planning applications so that, you know, affordable housing is built at a reasonable time during the development of the site? There must be some way of this planning authority putting some controls on developers so that we don't only give them the land to develop and allow them to make a profit, but we also say to them, oh, and by the way, you know, part of that deal is affordable housing, and we want to see them, and we want to see them going up at more or less the same rate as the stuff that you're making a huge profit on. Because when I say affordable, they're not that affordable.
Again, don't disagree with you, Councillor Hope. You probably know we have a policy on our larger sites, anything over 15, there must be a proportion of affordable housing. It can be 30 down to 10. Clearly, where there are issues of viability, there are lengthy discussions happen on that. Developers will very often come forward with a viability plan. We normally get the independent valuation service to come forward and give an assessment. And if the independent valuation service say this site is not viable with affordable housing, then we have to accept that. But I agree with you. It might be time that we actually revisit the percentages of affordable housing which go onto our sites. I can't predict whether they would change or not. But certainly there is a policy and there is provision for affordable housing to be provided on site. It's not always possible, unfortunately. We work very closely with our social housing providers to make sure that they are bringing sites forward as well. Jigsaw Homes, as you know, is the provider on Rolleston Drive. And I'm not sure they've still got the Chesterfield Arms site. I think they did have that site. I've got a feeling, and I can't say for sure, but I've got a feeling that might have been passed on, because that again is another site that's been vacant for a long time, which was going to provide some affordable housing.
Okay, thank Thank you, Councillor Hollingworth.
Can I just, before I forget...
Jim had a question as well, but do you want to come back to Jim in a minute?
Yeah, I just want to pick up on something Councillor Boyle said about empty homes, because I have to pay tribute to Nikki Bryant and the team. She's done an outstanding job and has consistently outperformed on her targets. And in fact, I think it's 36% was the empty homes has gone down last year. So, and I think you might have seen there was a lovely article I think Gedling did, which showed the transformation of a home that had been empty for a long time. And it's really important to bring those homes back into use, not only because they can be used by families and individuals, but because they're very often a blight on the neighbourhood and the neighbouring houses, because they attract fly tipping and antisocial behaviour. So I'll take this opportunity to pay tribute to that team for the work that they've done.
Okay, we've got Councillor Creamer and then Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, be very quick, because you sort of mentioned, I was going to mention that one of the issues is viability and how we actually try and get around that. And one of the other issues, of course, is it's not the developers that get the actual planning permission, it's the land that gets it, so the developer can move on, and they do that as well. So, yeah, it's the two issues of the viability, and I actually agree with everything you've actually said, Mike. It's just that we actually need the government to do it. So in that case, are we actually trying to put a bit of pressure on? I know you've said you've had meetings, but whatever planning, regional planning and national planning, are we actually trying to put as much pressure on them as possible? Because it is at this level, it actually it does make us look bad in one respect, but the amount of land that's been sat on, there's more than enough planning permissions been done by Gedling. We should be further ahead than we actually are, but as everybody said, it's actually out of our control at the moment. So the only thing we can really do is put as much pressure on government to change those planning laws. The MPPF about planning permission will be deemed to be given. That doesn't help us much at all when you've got certain issues, when we know we've got issues and then they come back with viability later. So sorry, that's my little rant.
Thank you. I don't disagree with anything you said.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for lateness, and I'm sorry if the observation has already been made. On social media last week, I think it might have been Gedling it said that Gedling had missed its housing target. So I corrected it. Well, I said they ought to correct it. It was house builders have missed the target. I think Councillor Hope actually said something which confuses a lot of people, and that is, we've built. We don't build anything. Developers build it, and we have no control over as when they bring the particular sites in, or if it's a big site, the time when particular phases. And it just annoys me when I see something as simple as a mistake as that. I don't know whether they actually changed it. I asked them to, but it is ridiculous. And in terms of what you were saying about district valuer, I mean, you will know that in my ward, there was a site which, in fact, they put the footings down in 2008, I think, and building only started last year. And, of course, they went to the district valuer and said it's unviable, and you wonder, shouldn't they have found that out before they started, that a site, if they did the proper due diligence? But, you know, I know district valuers are professionals and we have to take what they say, but it just seems to me ridiculous that you've got a site in my ward which is 44 units and we're not getting anything out of it.
Don't disagree, Councillor Lawrence.
Okay, Councillor Paling.
Thank you. I think mine's an observation as well. You made the difference between affordable and social housing. And my observation is that many of the affordable houses, because they are no longer affordable for first-time buyers, etc., are being bought by private landlords and become houses to let. So another issue for Gedling is to extend our licensed landlord programme, but I don't think that's one of your areas of work. But I think it's something that we need to make sure we keep on top of. Even though these are new houses, we still need the landlords to keep them up in terms of their value.
Yes, it is an issue, but you can't stop somebody buying a home, and if they're buying it to buy to let, that is what the market dictates. In terms of selective licensing, you've got to have very strong supporting evidence to introduce that. The Netherfield one was introduced to ensure that the rented properties were fit for habitation and were safe. And that was the issue there, because there are a lot of them. So you would have to bring forward quite strong evidence to support an application for selective licensing in different areas. I'm not sure that it's there outside of certain areas at the moment.
Can I come back? My understanding is other authorities have introduced it overall on the basis that they couldn't necessarily cherry pick, because even our wealthier areas have small pockets of those houses that could do with being looked at.
Yeah, I'm afraid it's not within my portfolio, licensing. It's something that might come to you eventually. But yes, I know Nottingham City had an issue because of the student accommodation, and they did quite a widespread selective licensing programme. But I honestly, I can't answer that question. It would have to be for the portfolio holder, public protection, to answer that. I'm not sure there's anything else on.
Got another question.
Sorry.
Oh, Councillor Sam Smith.
Thank you. Jenny, there's been a lot of pressure and voice in the news about HMOs in Netherfield. I wonder if Gedling Borough Council have considered Article 4, which our neighbouring councils have done in the city and Broxtowe particularly, to try, Netherfield's up and coming area, families are there, but short-term tenancies can cause problems, and I wondered if we'd considered that.
Yes. It is something I've spoken to Mike Avery about this some time ago, to have a look at the possibility. The government is not keen on Article 4 directives unless they're absolutely crucial for an area. I'm not against having a look at that. Clearly, we're getting more and more applications for HMOs in a particular area, and I think it needs careful consideration. Again, we need the evidence to actually support those articles, as you well know. But it's not something that I would say, no, don't want to look at that, because I think it's something we have to consider. But I know recently, I can't remember what it was in relation to, but the government wants less use of Article 4 rather than more at the moment. And I'll correct that if I'm not right, but I'm pretty sure that's what I read.
Okay, Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Some members will know there was a public meeting same night as the budget meeting, and Mike Avery went along, and he rang me yesterday, or it could have been Friday, to say what had happened at the meeting. And there were a few non-material objections that people had, but he seemed to think that in the end people were quite respectful of what he was saying. And you've already said it, Jenny, to have an Article 4, you've got to have evidence. I think at the moment there have been just four or five applications for HMOs in Netherfield, and that is not enough evidence to even start on an Article 4. But, I think what is needed is more powers, really, for the council to licence them. And I don't think that that's going to be coming along. Most of the ones that have had the rents are pretty high. So, people's worries about antisocial behaviour are not borne out. The biggest problem in a place like Netherfield, of course, is car parking. And if these young professionals have car parking, Mr. Avery did say to me that because there's another one coming up in Chandos Street, which will go to the Planning Delegation Panel. And if the Planning Delegation Panel is concerned about parking, there's no reason why it couldn't come to Planning Committee. I think a lot of the problems with this type of application, and I've had a different application in my ward, that people feel that they're not being heard properly. And as a member of the Planning Delegation Panel, I know damn well that we do our best, but to have it in an open forum, I think might go some way to assuage the fears of local people in an area. And so it could be really, again, explained to them why an Article 4 direction may come about. I understand, well, I know that the MP for the area has written to the council asking for one to be put in, but we will see. I mean, at the end of the day, it's his government that makes the rules.
Can I just say that HMOs do have a place? We have a considerable shortage of accommodation for single persons. They do not always lead to antisocial behaviour or other issues. They don't bring crime into an area. Also, you can't anticipate a problem and have that as a reason for bringing in an Article 4. You're quite right. There has to be substantial evidence to support it. I'm very happy to talk to Mike Avery about it. As I said before, I'm not sure the evidence is actually there at the moment. You will also know that you can have an HMO under permitted development rights for 6 people. So there are lots of areas where people put an HMO in for 6 occupants. As long as they have a shared facility, that can just happen under permitted development rights. We have no control over that. So.
Councillor Martin Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just addressing Meredith, I totally agree with what you said about members of the public being given their 2 minutes in front of the planning committee rather than things being decided by a delegation panel. Hence, the requests for ward councillors to be able to call applications in. And we did have a promise from the deputy leader, didn't we, last Thursday, that hopefully the constitution will be altered to allow that to happen. And I think it would be fantastic for residents of this borough if that was the case. I think everybody, it's their 2 minutes in court, isn't it, effectively? They want to feel as though they've been listened to, even if they're not. I think that's important.
Well, I'm sure they would be listened to if they came to the committee, but I get what you're saying, that, yeah, they'd be heard and then, be able to know what the ins and outs of the
At the moment, they've got no right to, have they?
Yeah. Okay. Jenny?
Don't disagree, and as you say, we have committed to actually have a look at that and see how that can be managed without it becoming something being called in at every meeting, which would take up time and not necessarily prove productive. let's say. But yeah, very happy to do that.
Marge?
This is a technical point that I'm hoping that others may answer rather than you, Jenny. About Delegation Panel, because it's a working group of the Planning Committee, it's not required to be open. But is there any reason why it couldn't be constitutionally? And perhaps it's something that one of those little tweaks that we could add to it. Because it's streamed, well, we're on Teams when we do it anyway, so it'd be quite easy to stream it as a general meeting for people to see that we do debate long and hard over quite a few of these. I mean, some of them are so straightforward that it's very quick, but a lot of them we take a lot of time over.
The short answer to it is that I'm not 100% sure right now, but it could be looked into definitely.
Okay.
Yes, thank
Rachel?
you. Just to comment, having attended delegation panel on various occasions, I just want to assure everybody that when objections or comments are put in by members of the public, those are considered by the delegation panel.
Councillor Creamer?
Yeah, just very quickly, on what Councillor Barnfather asked of the planning, and I have to admit I actually totally agree with him on that. If we can just say the County Council as a very simple issue, if 4 complaints come in, it goes to planning, whatever. And if a council, a councillor in his ward or division, in our case, puts in a complaint, it goes to planning. So it's just a simple request, and nobody abuses it, county, so I can't see anybody who would want to actually abuse it here as well. But it does give you the feeling that the actual people have been heard of and heard here. Because even when you go to speak for them, if you come to a delegation meeting or a full planning, particularly if you come to a delegation, they have no way of knowing that you've actually spoke for them. So that is the issue. And if it didn't have to be the council that brought it, and if they thought, well, we can get 4 neighbours or 4 people this issue, they would actually feel like they've been heard. So just agree with it and agree with Michael Payne's promise.
Okay. Thanks for that, Jen.
Yeah, just in terms of what Marge was saying about the delegation being publicly available, I think that would have to be something that was looked at by the Chair of Planning in conjunction with the head of Planning and Place. So I don't know what the Constitution says about it, I'm afraid.
Okay. So, Jenny, have you got anything else you want to talk about?
Just touch on Arnold Marketplace. Anybody that's been to Arnold will see that it's progressing well. It's on target. People are showing interest in the units. So hopefully we should be able to have those filled or almost filled. So that's good to see. The first phase of Carlton Square has been completed in terms of the car parking. Officers are working closely with Waypoint, who are the owner of Carlton Square, to secure further improvements certainly to the internal pavement area and the look of the shops. Employment and skills, we had, it was Apprenticeship Week at the beginning of February, and in the chamber here we had an employment fair, if you like, over 2 days with various providers and employers, and a number of people came through that. There were also online sessions for people to link into if they couldn't get into that. There will be a further employability session down at St George's. I've been very keen that we actually get out from Arnold and we actually provide in other areas. I think that's really important. The links sometimes between Carlton and Gedling aren't always good, and if you've not got a lot of money to pay a bus fare. So sometimes we have to take them out to Mohammed. We've had the Rediscover campaign for local town centres, and I hope you've seen those going out where people have got the nice frames and advertising the local businesses, and that has been very welcomed by our local businesses. There's a new page for local businesses on our website to promote themselves. And those things and the Rediscover campaign have been funded by the European Regional Development Fund. My understanding is we've got funding until 2023. What else was that I wanted to tell you about? Oh, important. Julie Nyuk, Councillor Nyuk, who is the advisor to my portfolio, has done some sterling work on looking at rural communities and how we make sure that rural communities are getting the support that they need. So that report is complete. There is some work to do. There is an action plan, and hopefully we shall get some results out of that where we can work closer with the rural communities to make sure that they aren't left behind in terms of connectivity and all the things that are going on. So I don't think there's anything. Is there anything else on employment skills?
No, that's great. It just shows how massive your portfolio is, stretching all over lots of different issues.
This is where I had a slight quandary, because when there weren't any questions, I thought, where do I start? But I hope the information I've given you has been helpful. Clearly, you can always contact me if there are other things that you think about. But staff are working really, really hard. You will know that there is a new head of employment regeneration has just come into post, so she'll be getting up to speed. And I've met her, and she seems, well, I know she's going to be excellent, and we'll take work forward for us.
Councillor Hope.
Yes, thank you. It's another. I don't even know if it's your portfolio, to be honest. But if it's not, just tell me. But I couldn't find it. I've been looking, but I'm sure when I read through this lot, we've bought 5 houses for temporary accommodation. I think that's an excellent thing. Are there plans to extend this and have more? Because I know the number of people waiting for temporary accommodation is long, and really, in my opinion, bed and breakfast doesn't cut it.
We are astonishingly short of social housing. The last time I checked, there was only 1 a week coming forward, and the housing waiting list is huge. And clearly, you can't move a family into a one-bed flat if that's the only thing that comes up. Yes, you are quite right. It is not my portfolio, but I am aware that we bought houses. No, it's perfectly right, because they do cross over a bit. You will know the bed and breakfast accommodation budget has been huge because so many people have come forward for all sorts of reasons. Unfortunately, I anticipate that it's not going to end with the cost of living crisis, because post-COVID, there were a lot of people already in debt. And I think the figures I read were something like 45% of those people had never been in debt before. That is really something to comprehend. So I don't see it getting any better. It will, hopefully, when we get the Rolleston Drive, that will provide quickly quite a lot of housing to get those people out of bed and breakfast. We know it's incredibly unsuitable for many, many people, particularly if they've got mental health issues, if their families. During COVID, it was awful because people had shared facilities, so we couldn't even guarantee people were safe. So we are very keen that we address that problem quickly and in any way we can, Mike, yes.
And I think that falls under Councillor Wheeler, and he's coming next time, so he better be prepared about the temporary housing. Councillor Boyle.
It's just that I've been looking down the list of point 2 and the responsibilities. You didn't say a great deal about transport, which is also part, I think, of what you deal with. And it seems to me post-COVID and how that's working, and also with new sites coming on for various things and the Gedling Access Road, is how you see sort of pushing for more public availability of transport coming through, and what's going on there.
I would love to see more public transport. You will be aware that public transport is actually being cut at the moment because of the lack of people using it. So I think persuading the companies to put more buses on is going to be quite difficult. Certainly in terms of new developments, I think a certain amount of houses have to be provided before you actually look at a transport plan and work out how that's going to work for that particular development. But yes, you're quite right. We need to look at how we manage that going forward in terms of getting people on public transport. The new Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan is very much working on the principle of 15-minute neighbourhoods, so that there is connectivity by cycling or walking and improving bus routes. That's something we're very, very keen on in the new plan coming forward. So it is being addressed, but how that will go forward in the present climate, I really don't know. And it's not just a problem for Nottingham and Nottinghamshire, it's a problem across the country where services are being cut. But yes, it's something we're very mindful of.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing any more hands at the moment, so I'd just like to thank Jenny Hollingsworth for coming along tonight and giving us a great update and a very good debate about the housing, about housing issues. Thank you, and thank you, Jenny.
I've just forgotten something which is actually quite new. You will be aware that we have business support in the Heb and Hannah have been working with our businesses, and they've just started Gedling Business Connect, and these are free workshops, and it's offered to anybody with a business, somebody starting a business, somebody new to the business community, and there are various workshops, and the first one was the power of blogging, and I understand it had over 30 participants. So these are proving extremely popular. The last one, last week, in fact, was social media marketing. The next one will be good website design and e-commerce. 17th of March will be easy email marketing. 24th of March will be visual merchandising, and the 31st of March will be photography and video. So we're looking at all different ways to support our businesses, help them thrive, help them grow, point them in the right direction.
That's great. Thank you very much, Jenny, and thank you for coming along tonight.
I think Councillor Smith wanted.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Sam Smith.
Just quickly, that sounds fantastic. I was visiting businesses the other day and they said all we need is some help on social media. How are we advertising that? Because that's fantastic.
Give you my one copy, Councillor Smith. I will part with it.
You are a legend, thank you.
Councillor Lawrence. Sorry, Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, just to say that it's on the Gedling Borough Council Facebook site, and I think it was last week, and I've reposted onto 2 of the community groups in Colwick.
Marge.
And also, they're quite happy to put councillors on their mailing list. So, as a general thing, as an update, rather than having to remember to look for it, you get a mailing about it.
Yeah, I think as councillors, I think we can do an awful lot with our own social media. And there is something called CT Skills, and they work right across Nottinghamshire, but they often advertise apprenticeships, training opportunities, and work and jobs, in fact. And it does say on it where the opportunities are, so you can just pick out the Nottingham ones and retweet them or repost them. So I think we have an important role to play in actually promoting what's available to people as well. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Okay.
All right.
Yes, you're free to go.
Free to go?
Yes. So just to mention further on the portfolio holder attendance, obviously we're having Councillor Wheeler's coming to talk to us next time. So we have got a few things for him already, but don't know if anybody got anything else to add at this point that they want Henry to talk about. But you can, I mean, I'm sure you can, or you can email Emma afterwards and for her to add to Henry's list. Okay, right. Moving on. So we're going to move on to the Gedling Plan Q3 performance report now, and we've got the brand new Corporate Director of Environment Communities and Leisure, Eugene Minogue, with us, who's going to give us a brief update on that report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I'll give a short summary of the Q3 indicator report, which sets out the performance data for the Council up to the end of Q3, which takes us through to December 2021. So primarily starting with the actions, there are 96 actions in total which are active in the current Gedling plan, which takes us through to March 2023. So far this year, we've completed 4 actions out of the 27 expected, and there are 23 which are in progress.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Sorry, let me see if I can move this. Is that any better?
Because we've got the background paperwork. Is it possible? It's in your. I know, but scrolling through the pack is not as easy. That's why I said, is it possible? Because people don't like scrolling.
Yeah, we have to scroll ourselves.
Yeah, okay.
Might be a bit difficult to get out of getting time.
Come on, are you all right, guys? Oh, hang on, Paul.
Just, I remember I haven't got a computer that's still not working.
Oh, okay. I don't know what we can do about that.
Eugene's going to talk through it.
Yeah.
I'll give a brief summary.
Yeah.
So far this year, we've completed 4 actions out of the 27 expected. There are 23 others that are in progress. There's currently no problems with delivery anticipated at this stage. In terms of performance indicators, there are currently 31 indicators. 11 are on target, 3 are slightly below target, and 8 have missed their targets. There are 9 other indicators which we are tracking for purposes only. The reasons for the 8 indicators that have been missed are set out in paragraph 2.5. And in nearly all cases, the underlying reason has been the impact of COVID-19 on our services. However, we are pleased to report that most of these are now starting to recover, and figures for Q4 should reflect a vast improved position. In terms of achievements in the previous quarter, these are set out in the appendix to the report. Some of the highlights of the positive performance are summarised in paragraph 2.7, and these cover a number of points, including the approval of the equality and diversity policy, the completion of the residents and staff survey to enable us to make improvements, the Rediscover campaign, which was mentioned earlier over the Christmas period, to encourage more people to get back into our town centres and to our shops, the Council's continued improvement in the carbon reduction measures by launching the Green Reward Scheme, the record numbers of participants at our swimming lessons, and the retention of 4 green flags across our fantastic parks and open spaces. I'd like to place on record my thanks for all the staff involved in achieving these targets. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So has anybody got any specific questions about the Q3 March?
There was just one, I nearly asked Jenny about it because she mentioned it, about the Rediscover campaign. She talked about it had been well received by mainly the shops, wasn't it, local businesses. Have we measured footfall in those at all? Are they asked to feed back whether there was increased footfall, or whether it's just a better feeling because they'd been recognised?
You'll have to forgive me, it's only my first week in the role, but I'll take it away and we can certainly check that.
It's that sort of thing, it's, because it's not it wasn't in, well, it wouldn't have been in the report yet because it was mainly over Christmas, but it's something that I'd be interested in finding out from the shopkeepers especially,
Absolutely.
whether they have noticed that people are shopping locally more.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Has anybody else got anything to ask? I've got a couple of things to mention, if that's okay. Sorry, I'm aware I keep moving away from the thing. You know, some of the things where we have tracking information, I was thinking, would it be useful or even possible to see what happened, like, you know, like a year ago? So we've got a figure for something, but on its own, you're not sure if that's, you know, good or bad. I mean, we've got the indicator whether it's up or down, but it might be useful to know what was the actual number last time.
So something like the previous quarter versus the previous year as well, if it was applicable.
Yeah, possibly, yeah. Even though we haven't got a target as such, it'd be useful to know, I think. And another thing I noticed in some of the things why we've missed our target, it seems like there's almost a bit of a hidden thing about we'd missed some targets because of we've been administering all the grants for COVID, and obviously that's taking our staff, you know, to work on those grants, which is fine, obviously, but some of the areas are slipping behind a little bit because of that, and it feels like a bit of almost like a hidden cost that we're having to sort out by having some temporary staff and things like that. But obviously, massive credit to the actual council staff for all they've done and the temporary people who are helping us too. Thanks very much. Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, it's just, just a very quick one. Page 37, the community money advice development. I suppose both Carlton and Calverton have been identified for future developments. Any further update on that, or what may or may not be happening, or times or dates?
I can certainly find out for you and contact you afterwards, if that's okay.
Oh, we've got two Councillor Smiths. Go first, Sam.
Thank you. The resident survey, it's under the achievements, has been completed and the results are being analysed. Do we know what return rate we had and how much it cost, please?
I'm sure we do. Unfortunately, I haven't got the information to hand.
Yes, I think I remember something about it. I think it does mention the percent somewhere.
It did.
In the papers. I think 6% sounds familiar.
If I make the comment, Chair, it seems like quite a low percentage, 6%, but we benchmarked that against other authorities in the past, and actually it's quite a high percentage response rate. But perhaps we could get an answer on that, whether that is true or not.
Yep, Councillor Martin Smith.
Yes, lots of fantastic achievements in the report. You mentioned about the green flags being awarded to various parks. Burnstump Country Park always seems to be neglected in these reports. I know it comes under, I think it probably comes under Councillor Hope's patch. I understand it's been, some of the ownership has been, or the maintenance has been transferred across to the Woodland Trust, but am I correct in believing it still belongs to Gedling Borough Council? Why do we not hear anything about it? Residents tell me about the lack of investment in it. It's great seeing the praises of all the good thing that's going on. I'd just like a bit of feedback about what's going on at Burnstump Country Park. Either now or perhaps we'll have a private conversation about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pick that for you and come back to you. As far as I'm aware, it's still in our ownership.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Councillor Creamer.
Very quickly, just to actually point out a typo in the community e-newsletter. I'll read it out. 3 community newsletters were circulated to 7,000 community contacts between October and December. Information shared included Pride of Gedling Award.
I noticed that as well, yeah. Easily done. Yeah. Has anybody else got a question about the Q3 report? Marge, have you got another one?
Another typo. Go
on, Marge.
It should have said comprised and it said compromised. And I can't remember where it was. I can't find it in scrolling through. I highlighted it for myself, but I can't find it now.
Okay. Okay, any more questions? Well, I think thanks very much, Eugene, for that update. Very good baptism of fire on the performance report there. Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, apologies. I just banged into the microphone. Okay, I'm gonna scroll through all my papers now, see, on my iPad. Make sure I'm not missing anything. So now we're going to move on to the Scrutiny Work Programme, which is item 6 on the agenda. And you'll see we've got a copy there on page, I can't tell what page, 55. So do you want to talk about that, Emma?
So it was just to get some feedback on any potential items for next year and to confirm, obviously, we have quite a busy meeting next week. Next time. I think. Okay. So the work programme that we've done so far, because we cancelled the January meeting, April was quite packed. It was just whether you wanted to keep all of that in the April meeting or move some to next year. So it was more to get your feelings, really, as a committee.
Can I make a comment before we start? Can we, the annual report of committee, presumably that's set in when we have to bring that to council. And I can't remember exactly when we normally do that.
I can check, that's fine.
Yeah, it seems quite a while since we did it, so it might even be at the April council. Potentially, I can't remember. Sorry, I probably should know off the top of my head. Okay, anybody else? Comments? Rachel?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to draw our attention, first of all, within the minutes of November of this committee, and then a motion within the full council meeting on November 17th, the matter of the discharge of raw sewage into our waterways, as was discussed, and as full council have passed that motion, it strikes me that should be top priority in terms of the work of this committee.
Yeah, that's coming to the next meeting, so that's in the schedule for April.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's Cabinet are having a discussion about it, aren't they? I think there's going to be something at Cabinet and then it's coming here in April. It is on the work programme list for April. Anybody else? No comments. There's a stunned silence. Okay, so we'll leave that as it is for April. So that's all we have to talk about for the Scrutiny Work Programme. So has anybody else got anything that they wanted to say about any of that? Obviously, we'll talk about we're talking about the waste policy has now been to Cabinet and there's been a consultation going on, which is just finished. So we'll get some more feedback on that next time as well. So I guess we're moving towards talking about more specific working group topics to go, because we've not got anything happening right now. And I know we did have a discussion about something around health and things when Henry was going to come in January, wasn't he, to the meeting that was cancelled. So I don't know if we want to re-bring that up with Henry next month around something like that. But I did realise we had quite a good conversation around some of the things Jenny was talking about. But I don't know whether that would be. It's about putting that into a context to do some further work on it, isn't it? Trying to think what she was saying, because there seems a lot of it we can't actually do very much about, unfortunately. She did seem to indicate that there might be something we can do about how much % of affordable homes developers have to do and things like that, whether that might be, but I don't know quite. What do you think, Emma?
I think a lot of that work would probably be done by Cabinet. Excuse me.
Yeah.
If there were specific things that we wanted to review, sorry, as a committee, oh my gosh, sorry. If there were things we wanted to review, then we could maybe do a working group.
Yeah. So has anybody else got any thoughts about working groups? Because I think we've got the thing around health. We can talk to Henry next time, and then whether anything comes out of the sewage thing, possibly as well. Sam Smith.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not going to. In Trent Valley, I'm lucky enough to have parish councils who work really hard on improving our play parks, and in Burton Joyce we've set up a Friends of group. I donated some of my councillor grant funding to them, got them to the 10,000 that triggers 100,000 from the waste management company, whoever it is. But I wondered if we could maybe review our current park. When that news went out on the Gedling Eye, I thought it was fantastic. But everyone from any other area apart from Burton Joyce commented about the state of their parks. So I wondered maybe a review into the current state of our parks, where they are, what state they're in, and then maybe the recommendation off that might be a PR exercise of encouraging residents to set up their own Friends of group, particularly in Lamley Field. That's in poor state. Killissick have just had a new one. And as a council, we can help people set those up and improve their area. We haven't got the funds as a council, but there are funds out there. Maybe we could help.
Okay. Councillor Creamer.
Yeah, sort of going along those lines, actually, the very tail end of it, actually, that we do have a number of friends groups of all sorts, not just parks. So it would be worth actually having some sort of scrutiny into how many friends we've got, how they operate, and more importantly, how we actually interact with them. So that would be quite useful, because it's more than just parks.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Feeney and Councillor Lawrence.
Just after this meeting, I'm going to a friends group meeting where we're going to discuss the lottery money that the friends group have achieved to improve a park. So if it can be done in Carlton Hill, it can be done in all the other places.
Sorry, Emma. Yeah.
I was just going to say, in terms of future programmes, especially for next year, part of the things that I wanted to do was to review and put to account our partners as well, so the partnerships we have, and talk about any community funding and things like that. So we're making sure that our any working groups or all the local people know what funding is there. So from next year, that's something that I think we should probably really look into. That's just to reassure you.
Thank you, Chair. As you know, I'm just a substitute on this committee, but I know that working groups are open to all members of council. I'd certainly be interested. I have a park in my ward, also have a parish council, of which I'm the vice chair, and it is mentioned in the papers that Gedling's been working with Colwick Parish Council with regard to refurbishing the play park. But the actual recreation ground, the Colwick recreation ground, is not in a very good state, and it has a changing room, which is an appalling state. And for years, I have complained about the fact that there are very few public toilets in our parks. And, you know, people say, well, it's not just having a public toilet, it's having someone to look after it. But it just seems to me disgusting. Did I see somewhere that the King George V Park in Arnold was getting a new toilet? It seems disgusting that we have recreation areas and people are supposed to go behind bushes if they need to relieve themselves. So, you know, certainly I'd be interested in taking part in a working group that look at the wider amount of facilities in recreation grounds in our borough.
Yeah, and I'm just going to be slightly parochial about this myself as well, because I think we've got a lovely Cavendish Road recreation ground where I think, oh, we could do this, we could do that, but there's no toilets. I think you can't have like an event and somewhere where you've not got any toilets really. Anyway, so did anybody else have their hand up? There was Paul, there was Meredith. Anybody else? Sandra.
Sorry, Chair. I mean, you're on about toilets and recreation grounds. It's expense, it's money. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, but it's something we can look into, and maybe is that something that could be done through like community funding, or these like lottery grants and things like that potentially. So Martin Smith.
It's on the Cabinet's to-do list.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, all I was going to say, Chair, is that some of the councillors here this evening are very lucky that Gedling Borough Council provides play provision and parks within their wards. The three out of the 4 villages that I represent receive no funding from Gedling Borough Council, and they're totally funded by local ratepayers. Ravenshead Parish Council, for instance, runs 3 play parks and receives no support from Gedling Borough Council.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Hope.
I will support that, and I will add that, of course, the communities that actually provide their own play equipment, recreation grounds, the mowing of them and everything else, which Calverton does, also pay for all the parks in the borough along with the other people. In other words, we are subsidising you rather than you supporting us, which seems a little back to front. At one time, there was a support grant, but it gradually got whittled away. First of all, 50% went, then another 50% of the 50%, and then it all went. But it didn't change the fact that the people of Calverton, presumably Ravenshead, presumably Lamley and Burton Joyce, are actually paying their full Gedling Borough Council tax, plus another precept on top, to provide themselves with the facilities that everybody in the Gedling area that's not parished get for free.
And maybe this is another thing we could look at. I guess it's just how the way parish councils are set up and how it happens. I don't know the massive details. I appreciate what you're saying about the funding. Obviously, I know how that works. But in terms of the other bits, that maybe we could get somebody to come and have a chat about that. It has been something I've been quite interested in actually. About that could be something we could just have a chat about in committee maybe sometime, probably in the next year. I think April's full enough, probably. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor Feeney.
Just relevant to the parks, that the parish councils were given the option to give the parks to Gedling Borough in the past, but they declined the offer.
Thanks for that, Paul. Anybody else? Okay, let me just briefly look at my agenda. I think that's everything that we got for this meeting. So, hang on, Councillor Sam Smith.
Sorry, I don't mean to get onto you, but we get to this item every time of the agenda, then we never agree what we're doing. So we've just had a big discussion, what are we going to do?
Oh, sorry, about working groups. I think we're probably more talking about this. So, we're talking about the friends of groups, something around the friends of groups. Emma, do you want to speak?
So we just wanted to sort of see what was the plan for next time. So the programme is quite full for next time, but if this committee wanted to amend it and put other things instead, then we can do. This is still amendable. But if not, then it will probably be for next year. Well, and from May. So it's up to the committee what we want to do, whether it's for April, and then we need to start work on it now, or whether it's for after April. And depending on what the issue is, it will be working groups and then reports back to the committee. So whatever the committee wants to do, really.
So I know. Oh, go on, Rachel.
As soon as I mentioned the sewage issue, it seems to me that we received the report, which is going to Cabinet first. But my point still stands that it should be a top priority thereafter.
That's coming to April. That's fine.
Yeah, Michael.
I would agree with Councillor Ellis. It is something that, full council approved in a motion, so that has to be in there.
Yeah, I agree with that. The things about so do we want to I guess now we could start to think about the things around the friends of recreation areas. Would we be happy to get the working group and then for them to decide exactly what we're going to do? I think that's how we'd normally do it, isn't it? But what's our main thing? Is that too broad a thing, the friends of and the recreation groups? Is that too broad?
I'd say we probably do one thing at a time because they're quite big areas, so it depends on what the committee would like to do.
Okay, so what's so it's about how to encourage friends of groups, is that what we're saying about, to establish, but were you saying something's happening with that next year?
So the thing about friends that I was talking about was about looking at wider partners in general, so that's probably more of a next year thing, because that will be to asking partners that we work with to come here and give reports on what they're doing and if there's any grants that they have or need, or just sort of working in a better collaboration with parties. So that may be a for next year thing. If there's specific things that you want to review and have a look at, like this and the recreational funds and the toilets, then we could do that as a working group. But like I said, it all depends on what the committee wants.
Well, then I suggest from May, maybe, we look at our parks. We need to review what we've got at the moment, what works might need to be doing, and then come up with a recommendation after that, including toilets, so from May.
Well, what I can do is I can add a report to the April committee for next year's work plan to have a more detailed plan of what we're going to do and what breakout groups that will be as a result of that. Would that be okay? Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So we'll do that. And then when we've got the review later in the year of the partnerships, and so that will include friends of groups as well.
I'd like to do the partnerships more of a frequent thing. So a different partner will come to each meeting and give you an update on how they're delivering against any contracts they have, what like grants they have, or what grants they could get, things like that.
Oh, okay, great. So we'll do after April, we'll definitely do the sewage thing. We'll do the parks review as well. Will be the next things to happen. Okay, so it won't be long till the April meeting anyway, here before we know it. Anyway, thank you all very much for the meeting tonight. It's been very interesting. And thank you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. And thank you to the officers as well who've been supporting us tonight. Never even mentioned Ben, who's on the computer over there. So thank you very much.